Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are talking about the 3 keys to transformation for yourself as well as your business. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to discuss and deconstruct insights from top performing entrepreneurs and industry experts. Every week we uncover tested tactical solutions to solve your company's toughest hiring challenges. Today our guest is Leisa Reid, author, speaker, trainer of Productive Learning. Leisa is a presenter with Productive Learning, a boutique personal growth company founded in 1992, and has trained thousands of people on the power of the mindset. After 20 years of management, sales, and executive leadership, Leisa decided to dedicate her life to assisting others to invest in their personal development. Why? Because she personally experienced the powerful results as a productive client of Productive Learning. She loved the company so much she joined them in the pursuit of living an extraordinary life. Leisa is also an author of the book Manage to Your Success, a guide to cultivating happy and productive employees. Leisa, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you, Rick, for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to cover something that you are an expert in, and I find really interesting to a lot of our listeners. Self-introspection is a very, very important thing. And so today we're going to cover kind of what your 3 keys to transformation are and how to apply it to your business and even to your recruiting process. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's start with what are the 3 keys of transformation?
What are the 3 keys?
Yeah.
Well, the first key, and before I even say the 3 keys, it's like if you imagine a stool that has 3 legs, not one of those legs is more important than the other leg, but they're all equally important. If you don't have one leg, then you're gonna fall over.
Yeah.
And so these 3 keys are what they're the pillars of personal development that we at Productive Learning utilize throughout all of our workshops. So there might be one workshop that focuses completely on 1 key, one that incorporates 2, and one that incorporates all 3. So and then we do that throughout the years. You get to really like play with all 3 keys.
So you can't really just take one on 1 key because then you're just going to be falling over, right?
Kind of, yeah. And so that's where I explain that ahead of time, because sometimes people think they just I did this one and I should be. My journey's done. I'm over. I know everything I need to know. That should have been over. That that's a myth of some personal development. I think sometimes people think like, oh, I dealt with that, so therefore it'll never come back to me again.
No, that's not. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's the pipe dream, right?
Yeah, it's
that's
continuous learning, right?
Continuous learning. So first key is developing an understanding of oneself, and how we approach that at Productive Learning, it's not so much that you need to dwell on your history or drudge up the past necessarily, but you do need to have a certain awareness of yourself, past history, things that have happened. You know how like we have X amount of memories. Let's say let's say we're both 26 years old, right? So we're pretending it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy, and we have 26 years of memories. Maybe say 23 years of memories if you remember, depending on how long you remember.
Yeah.
But we don't remember every single minute.
I've got about 10 minutes of memories, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's like we don't remember every single thing that happened, but we remember the spikes, the things that were really either traumatic or awesome or, like really happy. Like there's certain memories that stick.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, that's interesting. What memories stick in terms of how do they relate to what you're working on now? Like if you're having a certain challenge or problem or, gosh, I have a client who has gotten so far in their business and then just can't seem to get like they pass that threshold, but then they keep falling back. They just get right over, and so it's not consistent. It's like now we're in a mindset issue. Like clearly so it's more
past reinforcement of past experience.
Yeah, we're hardwired to learn. So by the age of 7, we've got these fixed beliefs, but we don't know what they are because we were 7. We were kids. We just were like, oh, this is how the world works. Okay, now I'm going to apply that learning to my rest of my life. But we don't realize that that's what we're doing. So we need to kind of go back. Again, not dredging it up or we don't need to get all the details in the story, but it's good to have that like, oh, this is where that belief came from. I get it. I'm I'm, like for me, it's like a fifth grade on the playground. Girls told me they didn't want to play with me anymore. Okay, great. So obviously scarring as a fifth grader, like what do I do with this
Wait, is it beliefs
situation?
or behaviors?
It could be both.
Both.
It could be both. So what we do is we try to get each individual, like, what clues can you pick up on? So therefore, like if we use the fifth grade on the playground example, it's like, okay, that was a traumatic event, as a fifth grader, to, have your friend say, oh, I don't want to play with you anymore. Okay, so you think, okay, moving on, not in fifth grade anymore. However, there's a belief that was created at that point for me, like, well, gosh, I need to know what I did wrong, and so that doesn't happen again. And so now I'm just going to be nice to everybody, and I'm going to try to get people to like me, and which is not a bad quality, you know what I mean? Except for when I'm using it when it's not necessary. Like so understanding myself enough, developing an awareness of oneself enough to when am I using my beliefs? Can I discern? Yeah, can I discern when is this being used for good or evil?
Yeah.
How is this helping me get into the direction that I need to be getting, or is this actually taking me off my path?
So it can really be anything. It could be a traumatic experience, or it could be something that just is a normal everyday thing, right?
Yeah, like if your
is
parents
it
said
normally
like
trauma though, or is that more deep seated?
It depends. Usually, what we're working with our clients is tell me a result or an area in your life that's less than 100% ideal. So usually when it's something that's like, okay, this isn't working, this is less than 100, you probably have a lot of really healthy, awesome, great beliefs and thinking that's gotten you so far. So we don't need to necessarily start with that. Let's start with the one that's more problematic.
Sure.
And sometimes that comes from something that's traumatic, but it could even be just from just a simple message, or parents are trying to do the best they can. They're like, you can be anything you want. You're like, oh, so much pressure. It depends on how we interpret that as a kid.
Sure.
Of like, well, my brother always did this, and I'm not like enough. And we just make meaning we're meaning making machines.
Got it. And then that just transfers to our behavior today and how we handle situations.
So that's
is it a triggering? It's dealing with making you aware so that when you hit these trigger mechanisms, you're aware of what it is.
Yeah. So then that way you're like, oh wait, this isn't, like, for me, if I use my example, it's like, okay, this isn't, I can see I'm going into people pleasing, and that's not really going to serve me right now.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be honest with this person. Like, I had a situation, a client who, definitely needs some emotional intelligence support.
Yeah.
And I had to, I was like, you need to take this seriously. Like, it is not going to go well for you if you don't invest in yourself here.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh no, you're fine. I gotta hold the line.
Yeah.
And whether he likes that to hear that or not is not my job for him to feel good about that. It's like, I need to push you to get where you say you want to go.
Yeah. And then it creates a whole nother set of problems when you don't when you don't deal with the emotion, I mean, in the right way, right?
Yes. Yeah. Because then we're like, blaming other people, or we're just confused, or we're stuck and we don't know why. And we keep trying to like search for some answer outside of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So basically I'm recognizing that, okay, this is a scenario that I'm having to deal with. It kind of relates to the way I handled this scenario way back when. Mm-hmm. I think though, what's funny is that often in my mind, I'll have a scenario or a situation that I need to deal with, and I'll have a pre-planned way in which I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And then when I get into the situation, I totally handle it differently. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what it is. That what you're talking about?
I don't know. How do you handle it differently?
No, I don't know. Maybe I might be. I played it in my mind that I'm going to take a hard line on this, and that sort of thing. But then I softened it up, and then it turns out totally different from what I had envisioned in my mind. Yeah,
we're constantly, and all those things can happen, and sometimes it goes our way, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a matter of reconciling. Are my conscious thoughts and my desires in line with my unconscious?
Okay.
Your unconscious is your 24/7 employee. Speaking of hiring,
have
you trained your 24/7 employee lately? Do you know what it's doing?
Oh, what is a 24/7 employee?
Your unconscious mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So most people don't really know what their beliefs are, what those unconscious assumptions are. So then they're wondering, why am I not hitting my SMART goals? Or maybe I hit it, but I had just this horrible gut-wrenching experience.
Yeah.
Like this was high anxiety, high stress. I shoved people out of the way to get what I needed and what I wanted. It's like, wow, is that how you want it to go?
Yeah.
the experience, and you're like, well, I have to because I have to work hard. I don't know. Maybe not.
Sounds a little bit like regression therapy. Right?
Could be.
All right. So the second piece would be what?
So the second key is developing your awareness. So say you have this historical, couple of points, and you're like, okay, knowing me, knowing my experience, I've learned this and this and this, and I know I'm going to react like this, or whatever it is, yourself. Now, can you see the train wreck coming? You're saying, like, oh, I know I'm going to Thanksgiving dinner with my, there's people in my family who trigger me.
Oh God, yeah.
How can I maintain my composure, my kindness, my compassion, in that situation?
So you're talking about
can
the
I
present
be aware?
moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we were talking past is understanding ourselves, now present is
Our current awareness.
how quickly can I get back on track?
Okay.
Yeah. So like a lot of times people say, I have a client who's a perfectionist. Any perfectionists out there listening? Yeah.
I'll raise my hand on that one.
So, a perfectionist makes a mistake. How long do they dwell on this, bad decision,
Forever.
wrong choice? Yeah. Like, so keeping you awake at night and you can't let it go. We like to think, okay, can I cut that time in half? Like, can I be aware enough to know, okay, you know what? That's connected to my past. That's here. How can I get back on track to have a better experience in my life right now?
Yeah.
And if I dwell on that for a week, well, what if we could make that 3.5 days? What if we could take 3.5 days and make it, whatever half of 3.5 is? 1 point. Higher math here.
Not good at math here.
This isn't called a higher math show. It's called higher power show.
Touche.
But that kind
Thank
of thing.
God it's not higher math, because I'd be in a lot of trouble. And I think that would be a terrible thing. All right. So now what are you teaching as far as the current awareness? What ideally are they? What should I be looking for?
Yeah.
Or what should I be thinking about?
Yeah. And that's really like it's developing a muscle of awareness. What we do is, like, in workshops, we actually stimulate things that could bring up those unconscious assumptions, those beliefs, those behaviors that we maybe we put a time frame on something, and it's like, okay, what do you do when you only have a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
Do you take a moment and stop and connect with your teammates, or do you just go everyone for themselves, and whatever? Do you get upset? Do certain people irritate you? So you really learn about yourself, and each person is totally unique and different. So that's where the discovery is pretty cool. It's pretty exciting.
But all right, so we're talking with Leisa Reid, the speaker and trainer of productive learning. We just covered kind of the past and present of the 3 keys for transformation, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm guessing is probably the future. The third key.
Spoiler alert.
I know. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, giving you access to recruiting techniques that will help you hire key talent to build your company towards real success. Rick is a recruiting executive and entrepreneur who's been successfully recruiting in the aggressive Silicon Valley technology landscape for the past 2 decades. After a very successful stint at Apogee, he founded Stride Search in 2012. Based on a lean efficiency model, Stride has uniquely positioned itself as a leader in retained search for the most critical talent hires within a small organization. Whether you're a startup executive or recruiting professional, by listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard, you will walk away with skills to help you attract and hire great talent. Now back to Higher Power with Rick Girard.
And welcome back to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and our guest today is Leisa Reid, speaker and trainer of productive learning. So we just discussed 2 of the 3 pieces of the stool in the keys for transformation. Yeah, I know.
Okay, you had to listen to the whole thing to
I
get
know,
that.
I know. I see where you're going with that. So we talked about the past and present. So let's move on to the next piece.
So the third key, and we did a little spoiler alert here, it does have to do with the future, and that's your vision.
Yep.
And this is where sometimes people get a little like, oh, I created a vision board. Oh, I have my affirmation. So I'm doing this work. And I'm like, okay, yes. And like,
yeah,
if you haven't reconciled the past and know yourself enough to know like what pulls you off and what pulls you off in the moment, how to get back on track, then that vision on its own is not going to have the juice that it needs.
But what percentage of the people actually really are self-aware?
Probably 1%. I say that.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I've been working, in this realm. Not only prior to productive learning, I grew up with a dad who was a hypnotherapist. I mean, this is a normal conversation in my childhood.
Yeah.
And to be aware all the time, I mean, my goodness.
When he pulled out the pocket watch, did you just run?
No, I loved it. He helped me learn how to fall asleep easier and be calmer. It was great. But so I want to add to the vision piece. It's not just having a vision. It does need to be a compelling vision, meaning like an emotionally compelling vision. And sometimes when people think vision board or vision, which we don't do vision boards, I'm not suggesting that. I have one and they're great and wonderful, but I'm talking about something a little bit bigger than that. Are you connected to your purpose? Like, what's it all for? Why would you bother change? Why would you change the way you've been doing things for so long to get this other thing that you say you want? It will require something within you to change.
It's got to be a deep-rooted desire.
It does. So you have to get connected to that, because otherwise it's like, why would I shift? The subconscious mind wants to stay the same. Yeah. It doesn't want to change, even though it may not be serving us.
People don't like change?
No. No, they don't. We say that we do.
Spoiler alert.
We're liars.
I actually like change, but I think I'm rare that way.
We like good change, but we don't necessarily like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like certain, car accidents also change, so we don't like that.
That's true. That's true. Good point.
We like good change. We like good change.
Okay. So how do we tie the three of these together?
So it's really that self-study purpose of like understanding yourself. We teach all three of those keys come into play in our Beyond Reasons workshop, which is like our it's not a beginner workshop, but it's where all of our clients start. Yeah. It's like, let's start to see what's underneath the hood here. Let's get you connected to what's going on in your past that is coming forth now and it's not serving you. How can you create awareness around it? Yeah. And then what are you doing this all for? Why do you want something different?
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you're really looking for the core of the why, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a deep discovery and it's very individual. We do it in a group, but it's an individual journey.
Do you do this in a sweat lodge somewhere, like on peyote? I mean, no.
No, we stopped doing that. No.
Somewhere in Arizona.
No, actually, that's so ironic because I actually did just recently go into a sweat lodge at Sedona. But
did you really?
I did. We did. There was no drugs though.
I did not know that, folks.
Yeah, I know. It's a surprise. It's like you're reading my mind. What's happening?
Or I think the hot thing now is ayahuasca down in South America, right?
Yes. Okay. You can do that here in California. Actually.
You can.
Yeah, but I have
Learn
not done that.
New
I have not
day.
done that, folks.
See, this is a learning experience, this show.
I have not done that. And
All
we
right.
don't do that at Productive Learning.
Absolutely not. We do that in the higher power. I mean,
right.
Stride Search Office. Sometimes. Not really. Anyway, so I digress. So let's go to really, how do we apply this towards your business?
Yeah. So like we've had different... most of our clients are, working, they're business owners or somehow professionally, work, have some kind of professional career life. Yeah. And it's really like where you stop and ask yourself, like, is everything going great? Like, is everything exactly how I'd like it? Was there any shifts that I'd like to see? And it could be something as simple as, gosh, I get really nervous when my boss asks me something, or and I start to shake and or I'm holding back. Like they don't know all the talent that I have. I don't have the courage to share that. It could be when you're hiring or you're building your company, like, do you have a vision for who you'd like to have? Do you have a history? It's kind of like dating. Like, do you have a history of choosing and selecting people
exactly
that,
like dating.
right?
Absolutely.
People that aren't serving your purpose, like what's going on there. So knowing, the more you know yourself, the more you'll kind of know, like, okay, this is what I usually would do. And it hasn't worked out in the past, but I'm compelled to do that. But like, I need to increase my consciousness so that I make a better decision for my business, for my company, for my own well-being, that type of thing.
Did you ever see that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza decides he's going to do the opposite of everything?
Yeah, the opposite, the day of opposite. Yeah.
And then he was hugely successful and landed the job with the Yankees, right?
Art Vandelay Industries. I don't know if that was the same episode.
He was a hand model, I think, right?
Oh.
But if you think about it, like if you go against what you typically would do, maybe that would be the thing that would switch it up and make you more successful.
It could, but you
Yeah.
know what'll happen is if it doesn't work, then we have more evidence to stay the way we are. So it is
Yeah.
it is a balancing act.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. All right, so how do we wrap this into hiring, in the hiring process? I find that a lot of people feel like what they're doing is everything they can do, but
Yes.
really, and maybe it's they need to figure out ways to do it better.
Right. You know, I think if I'll speak from the candidate side, right?
Sure.
Like the I'd like to have a job side.
Please do.
Yeah, and that can be a complete mind you know what. Like
Yeah.
you are putting yourself out there. You're really hoping, no, pick me, pick me, pick me.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get chosen. Oh, I got chosen to be an interview. And then it almost ratchets up the nervousness even more because
Yeah.
what if then they don't pick you from that? Then you're like, oh my gosh, they really got to know me and they still didn't
And
love
it's
me.
even
They
worse
still
if
didn't
you
like me.
really need the job as opposed to
Exactly. The higher the risk, the higher the emotion that goes up. I mean, there's a lot on the line. And then we start to panic, right? Like
Yeah.
when we're drowning in the water, they say, like, you know, you can even drown the lifeguard. You can literally drown the other person who's trying to help you
Oh, yeah.
and save you because you're so panicked, right? And hopefully that's not the case for anyone out there listening right now. But we can all relate to that, experience where you
Yeah.
know you need to put food on the table and whatnot. So it's kind of like, okay, understanding, looking at my history, looking at my patterns. How have I behaved in the past? What worked for me? Can I catch myself in the moment? Do I downplay the success that I've had in the interview? Like, oh, well, I was
The
on a
answer is
team.
no.
Right. Yeah, you're not supposed to, but do we?
You
Yes.
are your own,
Yeah.
you are your own marketing department, so
I
you
know.
really do need to not downplay it.
I know,
Yeah.
but we do it unconsciously.
Yeah.
Like, well, I was on this team, but it was all them. I just kind of helped. That can easily come out in an interview, and you
Yeah.
don't even know.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
And then you end up not getting the job.
And
then
you're like,
you wonder why.
Why did that not happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or not even going for it. I mean, it's also applying for a job is like a sales position. And if you're not a salesperson professional, you're like, why do I have to keep following up? I sent them the information. They should be calling me. I called them once. They never called me back. I'm giving up. No.
No, it takes 7 to 10 calls before somebody calls you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not in sales,
Yeah. You don't know that.
why would you know that? Yeah.
Which kind of looping around to recruiting on the company side,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who are in a hiring position aren't hiring professionals, so they don't really know that as well. They don't know that it's really a sales related role as opposed to being a, kind of get people in and, you're a special company, so they should just want to work for you type thing.
Yeah.
And so you really have to do this like what's working, what's not. Luckily, there's lots of tools out there now to gather the data to help to make those decisions as well.
Yeah. So you start looking at those things, but you also,
But the
you know-
root always comes down to the people, right?
yeah. And
'Cause it is a people
you're, you know how, you could line up like 100 recruiters and, there's the bell curve or whatever. And, if you're seeing, there's other recruiters who are actually nailing it more than I am, like, and I'm a pretty smart person. Like I should be making this much money, or I should be, having this much success. Then we're usually, at that point, if your skill set's the same, like let's say equal skill set,
Yeah.
then we're dealing with a mindset issue.
Yeah.
Then we're like-
Underperformance. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Then we're
definitely
like,
is.
okay, what's going on that you don't believe that you could have that success, or what's getting in the way of you? It could be decision making. It could be, not making that extra phone call. It could be just your experience. Again, going back to the experience of it, you're just filled with anxiety. Emotions are contagious, so
Yeah.
that could be.
Well, especially if you've had a rough day. Sometimes
Sure.
sometimes you have these days, it ebbs and flows. Sometimes you have a day where nothing goes right, and then all of a sudden your last call the day before you're about to go home just becomes an amazing call, and then it makes up for everything, right?
Yeah.
But if you didn't make that call because you had a terrible part of the day, then, So I guess that would be looping around to your past. Why do you give up, right?
Right. Yeah. So again, this is where it gets really like, we're explaining in broad terms, but when you
Yeah.
really, when I, really get a chance to talk to someone one-on-one and we talk about like, okay, what is going on that's less than 100% ideal, then it all starts to come out, and I can hear like the patterns of the thinking, and I can hear, okay, oh, that's interesting. You see it that way. Okay. Interesting. And I'm just collecting data, and then in service of them, like, did you notice that you said this? Did you, like, let's
Yeah.
find out where this belief is coming from, and
Yeah.
and where is that showing up?
in terms of hiring, I think that companies too frame it in terms of like the problems that they have right now. They're just trying to get work done as opposed to building the company. And I think a lot of companies have this complaint that hiring's hard, and but I think we make it hard.
Right. Yeah, anything can be hard. Like having cancer is hard. But hiring, you know what I mean? Like we can get into the habit of saying things are hard, but it's like, well, when we really actually look, and I you know, my dad passed away from cancer, so I was like, yeah, that is hard.
That's really hard.
That's hard.
Yeah, you made me wince when you said that. I'm like,
yeah,
it's really hard.
But we can get used to think, oh, this is so hard, and I do that too. I'm not judging. I do that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can get into those traps.
So what takeaways can we give maybe a hiring manager who's got some issues? How, what would be the first steps for them to think about it and start to lay out to solve that problem?
Well, I have in case you didn't remember or weren't writing down every single word I said. No, I'm just kidding. They can go on productivelearning.com and get a free webinar, 3 Keys to Transformation.
Oh, very cool.
And I go through obviously a little bit more in depth of the stuff, but we also have a workbook that goes with it with some great questions. So it absolutely 100% go listen to it, answer the questions for yourself, see what comes up for you, and we'll talk about like what patterns, where have you seen these things happen before, and we go through all the way up to vision and helping you create that. So that's a real great action item right there. Just if you're like,
self-introspection is
absolutely
is key for sure. All right, so that's great. So productive learning.
Not
productive. Sorry.
We're not psychic, but we're really good. Productivelearning.com.
Okay. Can you spell that out?
PRODUCTIVE. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, this show.
I know, but we're also spelling bee.
Can you use it in a sentence, please? I went to Productive Learning for an amazing workshop. Oh, thank you.
You want to know the word's origin?
Yeah, no.
All right, perfect. So we're just about out of time for today's show. Leisa, thanks so much for spending a moment with us and sharing your knowledge. I really appreciate it. And welcome to the Higher Power Radio community.
Thank you. Ooh,
so
bonus.
I know, right? You've been inducted. So to find out more about your book and more about your company, how might our listeners reach you?
They can go to productivelearning.com.
Which we've already told you.
Which we already talked about that. For my book, it's called Manage to Success.
And it's available where?
Available on Amazon. A guide to cultivating happy and productive employees. So if you are in need of that and you are hiring people, check it out. It's an easy read.
And happy and productive employees, by the way, are key in engagement and keeping people satisfied and working at your company.
That's right. You want them to
If you're not
stay.
doing that, then you're throwing money out the window.
Boom.
Your company's going to fail. Boom.
Mic drop.
I just said it.
So go buy a book and read it.
So go buy your book. All right. And then how do they reach you?
They can reach me at, I'll spell my name because it's spelled a little different.
Yes.
Leisa, Leisa, at productivelearning.com. Lots of spelling today. So they can email me there. And any questions, if you'd like to know when our next workshop is,
when is your next workshop?
It's in June of this year, and I want to say the 23rd, 24th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's a Saturday, Sunday. Just led one this last weekend. It was amazing.
How often do you guys do workshops?
We do. Well, we offer workshops quite often because we have over 40 different workshops.
Oh, wow.
But the Beyond Reasons one's offered about 10 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of every month, but not every month.
Well, let's pack them in, guys.
That's right.
Absolutely. So I want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power. A quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts.
Woo-hoo!
Our producers, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and Kim Iverson. Woohoo!
Yay!
Without them, this show would not be possible. To listen to this show and any past episodes, you can check us out on Hire, that's H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com, or Higher Power Radio on iTunes. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook or Spotify at Higher Power Radio. Or you can follow me on Instagram at RickGerard1. So we have another great show lined up for you guys next week. Our guest is going to be Todd Raphael, the editor-in-chief for ERE Media. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Girard on OC Talk Radio.